Welcome to the Recursive podcast. Today we are in Bucharest meeting some amazing and inspiring people. Our next guest considers herself an accidental entrepreneur, even though she started her first business when she was only 20 years old and still in the university. Today, Xenia Muntean is the co-founder and the CEO of Planable, a platform that helps marketing teams collaborate better. It is used by over 5,000 teams around the world behind brands such as Hyundai, Louboutin, Viber, and the United Nations. Xenia graduated from Tim Draper's Startup Academy in Silicon Valley and went through one of the best accelerator programs in the world, Techstars in London. Xenia, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk to you.
I got so excited reading your story. And accidental entrepreneur is not the thing that I would define you with.
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah, it is amazing how a person that was raised and grown in Moldova, in a very, very tiny village, moved her way all the way up to Techstars and Draper University. Congratulations.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
One of the podcasts that I listened to recently while preparing myself for this conversation, you said that women are getting more and more recognition in Moldova, your president, for example. So do you think that personal example is that important, really?
I think they play a huge importance in our lives. That's part of why I consider myself an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't have role models, women in entrepreneurship, in business. That wasn't a thing when I was growing up. Whenever I was thinking about businesses and people that lead businesses, I always imagined a man at the top of them because I didn't have those role models. So building a business, that was never something I dreamed about or something that I planned. I was always thinking that, I'm gonna have a job, a cool job, maybe a job where I would be happy. That was the dream. That was the best case scenario for my life. So I was just at the first business. I was at the right place and at the right time. Of course, there was a lot of work going into it, and I made the decisions, good decisions. I had the courage to go through with those decisions, but it was. In a way, there was a luck factor in there. Some of the earlier ventures that I was involved in, I didn't even label them as businesses. I was making money on my own, making products, selling products, marketing my business, but I never had this image of myself as an entrepreneur. So that's kind of why I call myself an accidental. I don't want to downplay the importance of work and the fact that I've put a lot of work and made good decisions, but there is a factor of luck, of being in the right place and at the right time in my story.
You had no one to look up to, but now Moldovan and Romanian girls have you to look up after. So they're you're inspiring them, aren't you?
I hope I'm making a good impression. Yeah, I hope I'm making an impact. That's definitely one of the drivers, and I try to get myself involved as much as possible in the community, help as many founders build businesses. Either it doesn't really matter of the gender, but of course I do have a soft spot for females in business.
Awesome. One of the things that made huge impact on your personal story in my heart was the willingness of your mother to get you the best education possible.
Yeah.
Isn't this some kind of entrepreneurship, to find the next step and the next step?
Yeah, my mom is a hustler. That's what I call her, because she's not an entrepreneur. She's not running a formal traditional businesses, but she has all kinds of ventures on the side. She's painting t-shirts, and she's making products, and she has a flower business. So she has all of those small ventures on the side that you could call businesses, but it's not it's not what people usually think of as a business. And the fact that she has pushed us so much to participate in things, to build opportunities for ourselves, She moved us from the small village where we were born, where she was born and she lived her entire life, closer to the capital of Moldova, Chisinau, so we can get a better education. So I think that is a form of entrepreneurship. She definitely has an entrepreneurial spirit that is super, super strong. And I think I learned entrepreneurship in a way from her without having the terminology for it, without knowing that this is entrepreneurship, just intuitively from her hustle, from her spirit, from her ambition, from the drive that she had. I saw that in her work and her work ethics, and I took that and I incorporated it in the businesses that I'm running today.
What I love saying is that kids do not listen to our words, but they look at what our actions are, and the deeds are the thing that define us. So I'm very happy that you basically explained how important your mother as a women leader, entrepreneur, how important she was in forming yourself as a hustling, very motivated, solution-oriented person.
Yeah, I think the resilience is what I learned the most from her, because she has gone through a lot of chapters in her life with a lot of tries and failures, and she has always jumped back. And I think that's something that I learned quite a lot from her. This resilience, this never giving up on the things that you want to build. And for her, that was her family. That was something that she has always tried to do the best and optimize as much as possible our lives. And that's something that I've seen and I've learned from her, this perseverance and resilience in pushing more and striving for more.
Yeah, people tend to fear failure, but how did you grow around success, like between successful and not so successful events? I mean, how do you learn to treat failure in your own life?
I think when I was younger, I participated in a lot of things. When I was super young, my mom enrolled me in a dancing school. I was terrible. I was so bad at it. But I remember her saying quite a lot of times that it is important to participate, that it's important to engage, and it's so important to try. I didn't understand that at a very, very young age, but I do now. I do understand that because you mentioned Techstars in your introduction. It was the 4th time when we applied. But just the process of applying, the process of participating in something, and the process of just trying the best at something, even if you fail, you learn a lot from it. It's, I know that this might sound cliche, but it's not a failure, it's a lesson. And I do truly believe in that. I do truly believe that you have to try, and at some point, if you don't give up, if you try enough times, you're gonna succeed, you're gonna make it work.
Let's get a bit of a context towards your story.
Yeah.
Basically, you picked up PR and communications for university.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, you started your own company, which was basically
an agency.
An agency.
Marketing agency. Yeah. That's
how did this happen? Anyway?
The agency?
Yeah, the student/entrepreneur agency founder story.
I think I always like to have this. I now realize that I always like to have this non-traditional journey in my life, to make things, to follow a bit of an unusual path. I really loved, I was really, really passionate about advertising and marketing and communications and PR since a very, very young age. And now looking backwards, I can connect the dots and realize why I chose this path in my life. Because I was super passionate about writing. I really loved everything visual, arts, creative. I learned Photoshop at a very young age, and I spent way too much time in it. And then I really loved maths when I was growing up a bit more. I even participated in we have this national contest, Olympics kind of style, and I participated in those as well. So if you connect all of those, the data, the creative, the visuals, and the writing, you basically get advertising and marketing. So I went to study that, but I felt like I wasn't getting the most out of it at the university. I was eager to put everything that I was writing into action. But I knew that no one's going to hire me. I'm a first year student I have no skills, I have no experience, and I know that young people talk a lot about the fact that it's so hard to get a job because you have no experience. But how are you going to get experience? So I knew that I need to get some kind of experience, and I got into a student organization called BEST, Board of European Students of Technology. And so I got into that organization. I climbed the ladder of that organization quite fast, and I got into the executive board of the organization, becoming the VP of Communications, VP of PR of that organization. And that's how I got, by promoting the events that we were doing, marketing the entire organization, doing a lot of comms and PR for that organization. That's where I got my first skills in marketing and PR. One of the biggest sponsors of that organization was Coca-Cola locally in Moldova, and they were looking for someone to manage their social. And there you go. I was there. I was at the forefront of that, and I took that first client that I had, and I tried to do my best. And fast forward, in a couple of months, I had a small, tiny agency, and we were delivering services for more clients. That's kind of how it got started.
How tiny? How many people?
We were, really, really tiny, like a boutique agency, 6-7 people at the most.
6-7 people at 20 years old. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Landing Coca-Cola as your first client and having a small, tiny boutique agency for 6-7 people, right. This is the dream. This is the dream for some girls and even boys to have an agency of their own to do the way that they see in vision advertising, and to land Coca-Cola. It's a dream come true already. And then you switch to something even bolder.
Yeah, that's true. I did. And now when you say it like that, I realize that it is, I might be downplaying things a bit. Yeah.
Two things that come to mind. First thing is, would you recommend the way that you did this to other young people that don't know where to start at? I mean, volunteering their junior skills, but a high level of attitude towards learning to organizations like ISEC, BEST, etc. Would this be a nice step towards?
100%. I highly recommend it. I managed my first teams there. I learned the basics of leadership there, and I often say that if you know how to motivate volunteers, you're going to know how to motivate your employees. So, you learn a lot there. So I highly, highly recommend. And what are you going to do in your first 1 or 2 years of university when, there's not that many things that you could do? And this is a great one. And also you meet people that you potentially are going to work with in your future. You build an amazing network. Some of the people that I worked with during BEST are now part of our team at Planable. So one of them is actually my co-founder. What am I talking about?
Awesome.
So, yeah.
So another thing is, why do you think that entrepreneurs downplay their own successes? I mean, sometimes it's like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and we just focus on looking forward, but as Steve Jobs said, you only can connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah, I know. I think it's hard for some entrepreneurs, and myself included, to enjoy the present, because you always know the problems that your business have. You always know the market, what's going to happen in the future. And so much of our mind is anchored in the future, what we need to do, how our business needs to look like, what are the problems we need to solve. And we very rarely look at the past and our achievements. It's just not something that we do. So I think that's why, because our mind is just so much in the future, we don't get to enjoy our achievements that much.
We already explained your first business, but basically Planable is a solution to your issues as a business owner at the first place. Yeah. How did this idea came to life?
So the agency that I was running, we were building a lot of social media content for clients. So we were managing their social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. And we were doing a lot of what's called in the industry editorial calendars, content calendars. We were planning what the content is going to be like for the next month or for the next week. And everything was happening in spreadsheets, in Excel files, and in emails, and in a lot of back and forth. I felt that the process was broken, and a lot of time was being wasted through the cracks of that process because it wasn't smooth, it wasn't streamlined. I was doing a lot of tedious work, such as mocking up how the content is going to look like. I had a fake Facebook page, an unpublished Facebook page where I was creating the posts, taking a screenshot and sending it to clients so that they can actually see what their content is going to look like in the end. So that was a huge waste of time. And I felt like the process could be so much more improved, and also the collaboration internally with my team. I remember I asked one of my colleagues to actually take a look and see if there's any other tools out there. And she came back with, the usual suspects, Buffer, Hootsuite, and other tools like that were helping us, could have helped us tremendously to automate the publishing and the scheduling. But all the back and forth, the entire coordination that happens before you know what to schedule and before you know what content to publish, that wasn't covered by those tools. And one weekend, I decided to participate at the Startup Weekend event in Chisinau. And my current co-founder, Nick, I knew him from Best. He was pitching an idea that seemed to solve our current problem. And that's kind of where everything started. We got together, we completely pivoted the initial version. We started from scratch, but that was the beginning. I struggled with my own problem at the agency, and in the end, I got together with Nick and with Vlad as well, our third co-founder, to solve this problem for ourselves, but also for the entire industry.
Something that comes to mind is basically your product ends up the whole circle. I mean, why didn't you keep the agency running using your own software?
Because I knew that I work best when I focus religiously on one single thing. And that's what I wanted to do, to just put my entire soul and heart into this one thing and, make it the best thing I can do. And my co-founders felt the same. And Nick left his job, Vlad dropped out of the university. We moved to a totally different country, from Moldova to Romania. We left our friends, everything that we had, to build this business. So, basically put all our eggs into one basket, but it paid off. So
would you please describe a day of a religiously focused person like yourself?
We were working weekends at the beginning, 14 hours a day sometimes. So it's a lot of sweat and tears that go into something like that, especially in the early days. So we were super, super united in this focus on building Planable and making it, really putting ourselves out there and doing our best to make it a huge business.
How quickly did you manage to land your first client?
Oh, it took a while. It took so long because we were very young. We didn't know how to build a startup. We didn't know how to build the tech business. Yes, I did have previous business experience, but it wasn't anything like building a tech product. Nick has built tech products before. He had some experience, but nothing like this that needed to be scalable so that thousands and thousands of people can use it. So it took us a while to build the product, about half a year at least, until we got to some beta testers that were giving us feedback and using the product. But it wasn't still commercial. We couldn't, monetize it yet. So it took about a year and a half maybe until we managed to land our first customer. And that was during Techstars, when we introduced pricing plans and got our first customer. That I still remember, a customer from South America that paid for a year in advance. And that was such a joy. Not just the first customer, but one that has decided to basically pay for 12 months in advance.
Yeah, talk about perseverance.
Yeah.
So during that time, you tried to get into Techstars 4 times.
Yeah.
And it paid off. Like, I mean,
yeah. We were trying to get into more than Techstars. We had our eye on 3 big accelerators, YC, Techstars, and 500 startups. And since we started Planable, since the first couple of months, when we were definitely not going to get into any of those because we didn't have a product ready, we didn't have users, we didn't have any traction. We were too early, even for those accelerators that still, are focused on early stage companies. But again, trying is extremely important because you learn from that. You polish your application and you get better and better at it. So every time they were opening a new call for startups, we were applying. So we applied in parallel probably a dozen times collectively at these couple of accelerators. Techstars was definitely one that I really, really loved and was excited to get into because Techstars has a European presence. So they have a couple of accelerators in London, Berlin, and maybe some other cities in Europe. But also they are very focused on founders and the network, which to me personally seems like a very, very important value. And that was the one that I really tried to get into. And the 4th time was with Charm.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about your co-founders, please. And how did your connection between the 3 of you evolve through the times of the idea, the Techstars experience, and up to 2021?
Yeah. We've been working together for 5 years already. In the beginning, it was just the 3 of us. And we were spending a lot of time in Cluj. That was the first program for startups that we participated in, a pre-accelerator called Spheric. In those times, we spent a lot of time working together, but also playing video games together and spending times in bars together. So it was, a very student-like experience. We were actually living back then in a student camp, a university campus. So we were spending a lot of time together, and I think that's what united us quite a lot. It's so crucial to just be in the same place together with your co-founders, especially in the very early stages of your business. And then things matured. We started, hiring more people, and definitely there were, bumps across these couple of 5 years with, our relationship. But I think we managed to smooth them over, and that's mostly because we are very aligned in our ambition to just build Planable. That's, this vision that we have, the feeling that we are these underdogs coming from Eastern Europe, from this tiny country, Moldova, that no one has heard of. And we're building this big business, and we can prove that that's possible, and we can rise above, what could have been our lives, and something bigger than ourselves. So I think this collective ambition and vision that we have for Planable is what unites us and motivates us to fix any kind of communication issues or relationship issues that ever arise.
Awesome. Is there something particular in regards to the values that you share that keep you together through hard and happy times, of course?
Work ethics, for sure. That's something that I can always count on my co-founders, that if push comes to shove, we're gonna, pull an all-nighter and gonna be there and work and solve any kind of problem. We're very big doers. I think that's, again, something we're really great at executing things and optimizing it and thinking about experiments and like running things. We're really, really good at that. Humor is a big part of our culture as well. Like this, we take our work very seriously, but we don't necessarily take ourselves too seriously. So, making fun of each other or like jokes is a big, big part of our culture. And we have actually 2 offices, one in Bucharest and one in Chisinau. And Nick is based he's running the engineering team from Chisinau and building the engineering team and the product team there. And the fact that we have these values across these 2 offices remotely and it's the same, that means that it is 100% something that is common between me and my co-founders.
Awesome. How do you deal with the roller coaster life of an entrepreneur, especially in Eastern Europe?
Oh, damn. It's a tough question. The roller coaster life of entrepreneurship. I think just the fact that you have to remember that it is a roller coaster. It's not like sinking where you get, it becomes worse and worse and worse. There's going to be a win at some point. And like remembering that is what helps a lot. Remembering the fact that it's going to get better at some point and that it's in your control to do so. That's what helps a lot. But also making sure that your family, your friends support you in this, they understand what you're doing. Your partners are on board with this long journey that you embarked yourself in. And having not being a solo founder, but having co-founders is definitely something, it's good to have a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah. What's the hardest thing in your personal experience about being a founder?
It's a good one. I think what's hard is, at least for me personally, what took me a bit of time to adjust with was the uncertainty. Because there's this metaphor for building a company, you're building a plane while you're flying it.
Where you're falling from a cliff.
Right, that as well. Yeah, building your so all of those things. Well, you're building your future. You don't know what it's gonna look like. You're the only one responsible for it, and it's just darkness. You have no idea. It's fog. It's not darkness. It's fog. Like you can't actually yet see how it's gonna look like. That is terrifying in the beginning when you have no ground to sit on. It gets better in time when, obviously the better the business becomes, the more solid, the more stable it becomes. At least you have your ground to sit on. You still can't see the future very well, but at least it is a bit more stable. I think this uncertainty, it is exciting at the same time because it can be anything. Like you don't know what it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be $1 billion business. So you don't know yet. It is extremely exciting. Your path is not yet decided for you, but it is a bit scary at the same time.
What's the most rewarding part?
Oh, the people, 100%. The fact that you get to choose who you work with and you get to build this culture that is amazing and exciting, and people are funny and smart and you get to learn from them. Definitely the culture and the people you get to work with, for sure.
How did you end up in Silicon Valley, and what was the thought process about staying there for longer than planned?
Oh, right. So when we were at Spheric, we had our demo day as part of a startup competition at the tech conference in Cluj called Techsylvania. And one of the judges in the jury of the startup competition was Tim Draper, actually. He was a speaker there. He was a key speaker, yeah. So he was also in the jury. And I got to spend some time with him during that conference. I got to talk to him, and he invited me to join Draper University. I applied. I got in. I managed to secure a sponsorship because it's paid, and so I managed to get myself a sponsorship for the program, the academy. We also won the startup competition at the same time, which is also in Silicon Valley. So it kind of all tied together nicely. The prize of the competition was 2 weeks in Silicon Valley with meetings, meeting investors, doing all of that cool stuff, soaking ourselves in the birthplace of startups. But at the same time, I got to participate in the academy, which was 7 weeks long. So I got to meet all of these very inspiring entrepreneurs from all across the world, and spend some more time with Tim Draper, getting to know him a bit better, building this relationship. And my co-founders joined me as well. So we stayed for about 3 to 4 months.
Awesome. How important it is to find the right mentors to support you through the journey?
I think it is crucial. I truly believe we wouldn't have made it to where we are today if we didn't have our first mentors at Spheric, but then afterwards at Techstars as well. But more importantly, at Spheric, because that was really the beginning. We were in our very, very early days, and the mentors we had there helped us build the confidence in ourselves. The confidence, the crazy confidence that you need to build a business or to commit yourself to building a business. You need to have this insane confidence to jump into this crazy adventure that no one else around you is doing. So you need to look at life with pink glasses. In order to do that, you need to have that confidence and that stamina to really truly believe in yourself that you can pull something like this off, and not constantly ask yourself, like, who am I? Why would I be doing this? Like, why would I be successful at this? Who do I think I am? So it's really hard to not ask yourself all of those questions. And if you have mentors that really help you believe in what you're doing and believe in yourself, that is very important. Besides all the practical advice that they give you, just that kind of confidence is extremely important. Of course, they help you with a lot of tactical stuff, fundraising, building your product. But for me, it was the confidence that they gave me.
Aside from Tim Draper, if you would have had the same mentors in your life, who would you pick? Who are the top 3 people that you would pick to advise you on the path if you're just starting the business now, Planable now?
That's a good question. I don't think I have an answer with the celebrity CEOs or celebrity founders necessarily, because I don't really follow any other entrepreneurs or founders, and I don't think necessarily that we the most the best mentors for you are the most successful founders or CEOs. They could definitely be, but I think what matters the most is the chemistry that you have between you and your mentor. And also, for me, what's important is, I think, to have mentors with whom I click on a cultural level, because I don't think founders from San Francisco can really understand our context and what we're going through. They would probably give amazing advice on marketing and product, but like fundraising from Eastern Europe or building a business from Eastern Europe, hiring in Eastern Europe is not the same. There's all kinds of specific challenges. The mentality is very different, even for founders, but also for the people with whom you're building the business, your team. So I think that's, I would look at this space, who has built businesses in this area, successful businesses. So that's kind of the list that I would pick from.
Awesome. Thanks for saying that, because context really is important. Yeah. You mentioned hiring people. What's the recipe for hiring the great team? How many people are there in Planable at the moment?
Yeah, about 20 at the moment. The recipe was to hire people that are self-starters, because we haven't built businesses before. So we do not have the experience to necessarily teach those people what to do. So we needed people that were independent, self-starter, super curious about the work that we're doing, and very excited to build this. So they kind of needed to have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in themselves. So we can do this together and be in the same boat. Those were the most important, and they're all cultural things. Of course, they needed to be super smart and good at what they were doing, but we're looking quite a lot at those soft skills, at those cultural attributes, so that it fits the best with our company and what we're doing.
I have a favorite quote for Seth Godin. You tell me if it's true or false. Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
What is it?
Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes, I agree, especially for hiring and people and building like a team. I agree so much. Yeah.
Awesome. you're serving such a high demand industry, and having such a culture is very important. Is there something that's helping you assess the people that you are looking to work with? I mean, are you using some tools like Kobe or, I don't know, 16 personalities or whatever to find these qualities that you just mentioned?
No. Honestly, it's just gut feeling. I wish I had a better answer too for you. Maybe we should. Now that you're asking me this, I'm thinking, oh, maybe we should. But no, so far not yet. It's just the gut feeling. It's just the chemistry. You obviously were asking questions in that direction when we were interviewing people, but I often ask myself, do I want to spend 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a day with this person every single day? Do I have the feeling that I can fully count on them? So it's just gut feeling. But I think after 5 years of doing this and hiring and building the team, I think we do have a really good intuition for these things. Obviously, that's not scalable. Whenever we're going to hire recruiters, they're not going to have the same gut feeling as us. So we need to build the type of system and infrastructure that you're talking about. But so far, it was just gut feeling.
You've talked a lot about building a startup in Eastern Europe makes the founder very resourceful. So how did you learn to work with what you've got? How did you learn to manage your life and business as an entrepreneur when, like the whole hype is about getting more capital and burning cash, and etc.?
I think this risk adversity that we've all that we all have growing in Eastern Europe, that helps a lot with not wasting money. We're very focused on ROI at Planable, and we make experiments, we take risks, but we're very thorough with how we spend money, and we're lean and agile, and that has become the new sexy in the startup world, right? Cash flow and having and being break even and being profitable, is becoming more and more sexy for investors. So we're in a good place in that perspective. But in terms of like managing my life and everything that's happening at Planable, discipline is what matters a lot. People don't talk, just like you said, people don't talk about, it doesn't sound sexy, discipline and being thorough and managing your calendars and emails and being methodical about the way you do work, attention to detail, all of those things. They're super, super important. It's not all about a bold vision, and there's a lot of day-to-day. So you need to have that focus in the day-to-day. Of course, from time to time, you need to extract yourself and make time for thinking, block time for deep thinking in your calendar so that you don't lose sight of the big picture. That is extremely, extremely important, and it's very hard to balance them. But with discipline, again, you can create that space, that bandwidth to think about the big things, to think about the market, think about where the company is going. But you have to have the discipline to just organize and order your life in such a way that you make space for both the day-to-day, the focus, running the company, executing, and also making time for deep thinking.
Does this frugality that we basically were raised at help and give the edge, this edge over the competition, this competitive advantage for startups that are built here?
I 100% believe that so much. I think it is becoming harder and harder to do that, especially now with remote and other companies starting to hire in this space. They're kind of edging a bit into our competitive advantage, to be honest. But I think we're still not going to lose the frugality and this lean attitude that we have towards things. I think it is super important to keep that as part of our DNA.
Xenia, how do you make time for deep thinking and looking at the big picture as a founder? Because you started like the three of you, and now you're 20 people. So someone like you're the CEO might need to like stand out and have a look of the surroundings.
So what we do is that every quarter we have what's called the Planable Summit. What we do is that we get together with the executive team, the leadership team, and we take a couple of days to think about the future, to think about the market, what's happening, to ask ourselves profound questions. And then we go into like strategical, tactical planning, what are our key results for the next quarter and all of that, what initiatives we're going to have, what campaigns we're going to build, what we're going to do in the product. The first couple of days in that week are really focused on thinking big. And we do that collectively, the executive team. But I try to block some time in my calendar to think about those things. But it's super hard to do that in a methodical way because it just doesn't come to you when you're, scheduling it to come. Like a block in the calendar, now I need to think creatively big. No, it doesn't happen. So often, the most like out of the box and creative ideas come to me on my way to work. I have 15 minutes from home to work where I just walk and I don't, my phone is in my backpack and I just, walk and there's nothing else, distracting me. And sometimes really interesting ideas come to me right then on that walk that I have, or while running in the morning. That's again another space where I have no notifications, nothing with me, and it's just empty space, a blank page where really interesting thoughts might occur.
Sarah Blakely from Spanx does the same thing. She basically gets her ideas while commuting from and to work, which is a great coincidence.
Yeah.
Another female inspiring $1 billion company owner.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A lady.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Something in common with her.
Something in common. Hopefully there will be more and more things in common.
Exactly.
This is what I wish for you and the entire company. So how do you think your role within the company in Planable evolved or changed through the years? So 5 years?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think it evolves quite a lot, and it in the beginning, I was really executing quite a lot of the marketing, the campaigns, sales. I was in the nitty-gritty of it every single day. Now it's not that much about it. Now it's more about empowering the team to do that so I can, be off one day and the company just runs, and that's kind of the idea.
Self-managing.
Yeah, self-managing, exactly. And that's why it's important to hire, independent, or how my co-founder calls them, missionaries, not mercenaries. So that's very, very important for us at Planable, at least with the resources that we have. It changes quite a lot. I'm not in the day-to-day of things that much. So now it's more on the high level, more strategical, the brand, big customers, the future, the product, the vision, and fundraising. Whenever that happens, that's my area as well. But it's more about coaching and empowering the team to do better than I would have ever done it.
Previously, you mentioned about the Planable Summit.
Yeah.
And because I love questions and this curiosity in me, forgot to ask you about sharing a profound question that you ask yourself or the team. Like, what's your favorite question or type of question that you ask yourself or the team when you're thinking together?
Ooh, that's a good.
Anything that comes to your mind.
I think what we ask ourselves quite often, and works very well, and it throws us into a lot of other conversations. Whenever we're afraid to make any kind of decisions, we ask ourselves, what's the worst case scenario? And this is a very, very useful question for founders that are a little bit afraid of risks. We think a lot of founders growing in Eastern Europe might struggle with that. So we ask ourselves, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst that can happen? And then we think about all the worst case scenarios, we go through them, and we think, what can we do to avoid any of those worst case scenarios? So it becomes, quite a big conversation from there on. Yeah.
Awesome. Great question. I believe that it might be used even for starting your company and finding your...
Right. Yeah. What's the worst that it can happen? That's it.
Go back to your corporate career.
Go back to your job. You're gonna find that job at any point in time. Yeah, you might lose some money, you might get older a bit faster, but what's the worst that can happen?
Okay, can you imagine yourself going back to like corporate? Sorry, bad question. You've never had a corporate
I've
job.
never had a corporate
So
job.
can you imagine going and having a corporate job now after what you've gone through with Planable?
I can, because I've never had a corporate job.
Okay.
I can't because I don't, I might be idealizing it or kind of underestimating how hard it could be because I've never had one, right? So I might be being a bit naive and thinking like, I'm going to turn that around, right? Like I'm going to push through bureaucracy or, it's not going to be hard. I might overestimating my capacity to adjust and be flexible with that job. So the fact that I've never had one makes it a bit easier for me to imagine having one. And I think there's still, a place where I could actually do some really good work, and having a job in venture capital or having a job in innovation, right? Like big companies, but in their innovation arm or in their startup partnership arms. So all of those areas, they seem like, they don't seem too bad to me. So I don't think a corporate job is something bad in itself. I think people do amazing work and are super happy, corporate jobs. And I might have one in my life. Who knows? You never know. I've never thought I'm going to have a business, so who knows?
Do you consider yourself as a perfectionist or more of a learning on the go type of person, even if it makes like making a ton of mistakes?
I'm definitely a learning on the go person. I remember that in the beginning of starting Planable, I was so anxious about the fact that I do not possess enough knowledge to build a company, and I was anxiously reading a ton of things about startups. I think that was useful for that point in time. But I remember reading an article about learning, where they said that sometimes it's more important to learn for something that you're currently dealing with. So like learning contextually for the problem that you just bumped into rather than, learning in general. I still think that both things are super, super useful. I'm just more the type of person that I read articles whenever, or I don't read books. I read articles. I read business articles, or I connect with other people to learn what they've been doing. So I research a specific topic whenever I'm bumping into it. I sometimes might be reading some articles that are not related, just, because it might spark some idea. But, I would say 80% of times I just learn on the go while I do something, and I do research on the side while I'm doing that thing.
It's a great tactic actually for finding solutions to this particular problem that you're like facing.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing like a concrete example of like something that you bumped into and how did you approach it and what kind of information did you gather just to find your solution for it?
For example, fundraising. I never fundraised. So the first time when I had to do that, I had no idea, how to approach it, from what angle, what to do. So I've read a lot of articles on that subject before fundraising. Now I don't read that much about fundraising because I don't need it at the moment. But back then I was reading a lot about it, how to do it, what are the tactics, how to organize. I was looking at webinars, courses, all of that things. And besides that, I was also connecting with a lot of founders that have gone through fundraising processes and learning from them as well. I really, really enjoy having these conversations with people and learning from them, not just from books, but from people that have actually gone through something like that. So that's one of the situations where I had to do that and learn it just on the go.
What kind of message, what kind of knowledge would you share with your 18-year-old self?
Ooh, message or knowledge?
Like message yourself, like you have 180 characters in Twitter. Send Xenia a Twitter message about the most important thing that you've learned and she should know.
To not be afraid. Yeah, I think that would be not be afraid. You're stronger than you think you are and smarter than you think you are. So yeah, be bold.
How important is being bold actually? Because people in Eastern Europe maybe underestimate themselves. Like you said, we are the underdogs.
Yeah.
Why are we the underdogs? Why aren't we not the superstars?
Yes, we don't have enough success stories in Eastern Europe. We don't have that many companies to look up to. We don't necessarily have the best economies. Like, I consider myself an underdog because of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, right? Like coming from born in a small village in a post-Soviet country, the poorest country in Europe, and managing to build something out of yourself. That I think that's a classical underdog story. And I think the more we build more successful, we're superstars at some things, just not at startups, not yet. We're superstars at executing, we're superstars at technical, engineering, talent, all of those things, we're really superstars at that. But not at business, just not yet. But it is coming. I feel like it is coming. And there's a lot of, the more success stories we have in our own home countries, the better it is. Like the UiPath story in Romania, and Bulgaria is having a lot of success stories recently, right? So all of those things that are happening, I think they're going to help inspire new generations of founders. They're going to get the courage to be bold and not be afraid because they've seen it happening in the past. You can't be something that you haven't seen. You can't build something that you've never seen happening.
Awesome. We were talking about underdogs, but actually you're from Moldova. You speak fluently 2 languages, at like Russian and Romanian, and there goes the English. So.
In French, I learned French at school. I don't speak it fluently, but I can read it and understand it.
So, speaking at 4 languages, you are basically able to talk to investors in 4 totally different markets. So, isn't this an amazing advantage that we really underplay?
Yes. So, the advantage of Eastern Europeans is just our intellectual power. I think it is 100% there, like speaking multiple languages, being super good at math, arts, engineering, technology, physics, all of those stuff. Like the intellectual power is 100% there. We just need a bit of time to polish it and to focus it into, and to develop it on the business side as well, because that's novel, right? In the US, I know children learn to build businesses, lemonade stands from a very, very young age. We don't have that here. They learn in school how to play in theater, how to speak publicly. So all of those things are super useful when you're building a business, when you have to pitch investors, when you have to talk to a lot of people and put yourself out there. They're used with that because they go to all of those activities that kind of set the stage for them to build businesses. We don't have that yet, but maybe we will in the future.
Xenia, there's one question that we always ask our guests at the end of such wonderful conversations, just like ours today. It is, what would you like to be remembered for?
Oh, wow. Oh, that one is deep. I would like to be remembered for the hustle, for the drive, for the energy that I'm bringing into everything that I do. Not necessarily. I mean, yes, at the moment it is Planable, and it's going to be Planable for a very long time. But whatever I do, I hope that's what I'm being seen as, like this energetic power and the drive that I'm bringing into, and the fact that I go full into something that I do. I think that's it. Kind of ties well with the resilience and the perseverance that we were talking at the beginning.
So we now go into our blitz round.
Yes.
With Xenia Muntean.
Let's do it.
You ready?
Yes.
What are you, a morning person or a night owl?
Definitely not a morning person. Not a morning. My sweet spot is waking up at 9. That's my most comfortable time, so not an early morning person.
Instagram or TikTok?
Lately, more and more TikTok. More and more TikTok. I'm going through a TikTok phase quite a lot. Too much, probably.
Yoga or jogging?
Definitely not yoga. I got into running since April. I'm actually preparing for a race for the Bucharest Marathon in October, which I am very, very excited. It's going to be my first race. But yeah, running.
Which is the tool that you use most often in your daily life?
My calendar. I live and breathe in my calendar. It drives my life. So my calendar, I think, and my email as well. And the good list. It never hurts. A good list is always a good idea.
Innovation is?
Impossible until you try.
I am proud I come from Eastern Europe because
we're underdogs and we're cool underdogs.
The best marketing advice that I have received is
building a brand first before even having customers.
My big bold entrepreneurial dream is
making Planable the standard for creative collaboration worldwide.
And I am on a mission to
build meaningful, impactful businesses that change millions of lives.
Awesome. Xenia Muntean, thank you so much for being today with me on the Recursive podcast. It was a pleasure having you, and I'm very lucky to be on this position because I know how much Irina likes talking to inspiring female leaders like yourself. Wishing you best of luck and loads of success with Planable and your future endeavors.
Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Pleasure was all ours.
In the next episode of the Recursive podcast, Georgi meets the future trend spotter and co-founder of social innovation solutions, Ciprian Stănescu.
Rhoda uses the term of juggling.
Yeah.
So, and that's a problem because when you juggle, you really focus on that. You're really looking at the whatever you juggle with. So you don't really look around and see what else is there.
And if you are just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.